works already. I love it. Welcome, everybody. I am Jamie Kalon, and welcome to the Marketeers Clubhouse. Today in the Clubhouse, we have a long-standing friend of both myself and Mark, my guest host today. Julia LoVecchio, I met you when I was about 16. You were dating a person that I was working with at a bicycle store at the time, and you were as cute as a button and still are. And I absolutely am attracted to you because you're super positive and friendly and kind. And somehow growing up in Calgary, we both ended up in the marketing world, which is really strange, me, you, and Mark. And we all kind of know each other from very similar circumstances. So you're a mountain biker, you're a skier, you're an all-around fantastic athlete. You've had this great career where you've sort of worked at multiple different types of roles. You've been in an agency, you're doing pure marketing in the tourism world, which I know very little about, which I'm going to quiz you a ton of things on today. I got so many questions. Welcome. Do you mind giving us a quick breakdown of where you came from? We're sitting in Calgary. You're in Banff, Alberta today. Beautiful, the gem of the Canadian Rockies. Mark and I are in Calgary, and we all grew up in this neck of the woods. How did you get to where you are? Like, what's the young Jules story?
Young Jules' story would probably start actually with my father, Sal, being at McGill, meeting my mother, and then in 1978, dragging her kicking and screaming from the city of Montreal back to his homeland of Calgary, Alberta, which was then a city of maybe 250,000 people, and promising her that he was going to show her this wonderful life in the mountains. And she was like, "Where are you taking me?" And I would say I have the beauty of being both a Flames fan and a Habs fan. Grew up with having my summers in Quebec and my winters in Alberta. And my dad was hell-bent on having kids that skied and played in the mountains. Every weekend we went up to Lake Louise. I grew up ski racing. Dad was a very early adopter of using alternative methods to access powder. And I think that sort of created a deep, deep love for me of being in the mountains.
You left out mountain biking somehow in all of that. I don't know how you left that out, but I believe mountain biking also fits in the middle here somewhere because it's about the coolest of all the sports. So,
I mean, I live in Banff now, and I spent 20 years living in Canmore, where I fell deeply in love with mountain biking. I would say I spend a lot of time on my road bike now. I mean, summertime riding mountain bike is attuned to skiing POW in the winter for me. I get to go do really long, steep climbs and then hopefully ride a really amazing piece of single track. I think there's something that I would tie into my business world of working really, really hard and digging deep that I have in my recreational world. I like working hard, and I kind of like suffering. So.
You love to suffer. Yeah. You also, your boyfriend at the time, Eric Kramer, he is nothing but suffer as a boyfriend, I would assume. So it started early for you, even in picking someone to date for a few months to a year. So your family brought you here. You guys fell in love with the mountains. How did you end up in the world of marketing? Because you had a fairly long time, about 5 years-ish at Critical Mass, which is a fantastic agency in Calgary that specializes in the digital world. They build websites and apps and all sorts of different neat things. How did you end up there?
I ended up there actually sort of a strange path. Ultimately, I think where my talent lies is in understanding audience and message. And whether that is through my years as an environmental consultant for the National Park ski areas and various businesses around Banff, doing more on the environmental side, and then sort of going back to school and doing my master's in GIS. Coming out of it, I realized that GIS enables people to take very complex subject matter. Basically, anything on Earth has an X and Y coordinate, which enables you to tell a story about everything that stacks on top of that from an environmental perspective. And
what's GIS for those?
Geographic Information Systems.
There we go.
So anytime you've got any kind of information on the Earth, you can tell a story with it through mapping. So I went back to school to do my master's, and as I was defending my master's in my final exam, they were like, "So what are you going to do with this?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to go and work for a hat company," and that was Ambler Mountain Works at the time, based in Canmore. And I realized that storytelling was actually more my forte than science. I appreciate science. I love science, but I think the message and the meaning behind what kind of information you were talking about at a certain time is really where my passion is. So I left, spent some time working for Ambler, went through a pretty tragic experience at that organization, lost two of my business partners in a car accident, and not only grew the business significantly, not only did we survive, but we grew the business significantly in the few years afterwards. But it was a very tough time in my life. And I think ultimately, in order to move through that trauma, I needed to go and find something else to do. Both the CEO at the time, Diane Wilkins at Critical Mass, her father and my father were on the bench together. They were both federal court justices, and both our dads were like, you guys should really meet each other. And so I sat down with Di for a lunch one day and talked to her about sort of, what I thought about the world. And Diane was like, we really need someone that can focus on helping us from an internal brand perspective get alignment as an organization. For every day of the year at that time, that would have been in 20, I don't even know what, 2006, I think it was. Anyways, for every day of the year that Critical Mass operated, they hired a person. And they were dealing with such massive growth and a bit of lack of continuity around how they operated as an organization and how people identified with as being an employee. And so I got brought on really to focus on that. And I think we did a really good job. We launched a new internal brand for the organization. I spent a lot of time working with the executive team on what it meant to be an employer. And I'd say Critical Mass is as strong as it's ever been now. I'm obviously not there anymore, but I had a wonderful, wonderful experience. There's such a cool and incredible agency operating and really competing against Madison Avenue, but they're based in Calgary. So they're this kind of like a little bit of a engine that could.
Calgary's got a bunch of that kind of small companies with a really solid fuck you attitude to the bigger cities that just keeps driving. In fact, it's interesting. There's a couple people I know that have been super successful and have washed themselves fairly clean of their Calgary roots. And I actually find it distressing. It bugs me. And I won't bring up exactly who it is, but there's more than one. And I just find, like Calgary was so nurturing to so many people and to all these people at the same time. I always find it slightly sad that they abandon it and don't spread it back. So, sometimes when you make a bunch of success, it's good to bring along the city that you grew in that let you do it. So it's awesome that Critical Mass exists here. I talk about them a bunch in the world of what Calgary is because they're a great example of it. So it's very cool.
We're not here for the high rollers, snooty wine critics, or long-haul collectors, but we do think it's about time wine cellars turned into swoon-worthy works of art. Our experienced designers will bring your dream wine cellar to life, fitting any sized space and aesthetic requirements in your home. Our craftsmen carefully hand-build your cellar to give you a wine storage space that really feels like you. Visit themoderncellar.com for more information.
So you spent a ton of time at Critical Mass. You then end up in the tourism world, back in out in Banff. Where are you now? Where are you working? What do you do? What is the company? Maybe give me a quick brief and give everyone a quick brief of what the company you work for now does.
I have the great fortune of being the director of marketing for CMH Heli-Skiing and Summer Adventures. CMH is the original heli-skiing organization. We created the whole industry in 1965. It was founded by a gentleman, Austrian guide named Hans Moser, and his partner, Leo Grillmeyer. And yeah, to be able to work for a brand that, as a skier, I would say it's very difficult to go anywhere in the world and talk to a passionate skier and they don't know the CMH brand. So it's a huge honor for me to be able to represent that organization. I've been there for almost 8 years now. And I'm sort of transitioning into tourism. When I was working at Critical Mass, I was spending 3 days a week commuting into the city. And, like you said, Jamie, I love Calgary. Calgary's a great place, wonderful place to have grown up in. It really is a city of opportunity. But I was feeling very disconnected to my home in the Bow Valley. I would leave 3 days a week, and then the other 2 I'd be sitting at my house working. And I didn't feel any connection to that place anymore. And so when I left Critical Mass, I was looking for opportunities to get reconnected with the Bow Valley. And I've had a great fortune to have a number of mentors in the community for several years that said, oh, you need to talk to this person. That seems to be the way the Bow Valley works, is you don't really apply for jobs. You just kind of fall into them.
It sound a little familiar, Mark Walton. I believe that entire component, the being
just a little bit, yeah. Few people I know have gone that route for sure.
Yeah, Mark, give us a little background because I don't think a ton of people know exactly what's your Bow Valley story? Where you come from?
Born and raised in Canmore, Alberta.
Can you two explain Banff Canmore? Most people don't know exactly how these things, they're on top of each other, separated by a mountain, basically. But there's a distinct difference with the park. Can you guys explain sort of the territory a little bit?
So Canmore is closer to Calgary. Banff is another 20-ish kilometers further along. Canmore is outside of the national park. It was originally a mining town and then sort of commercialized around the '88 Olympics when the Nordic skiing portion of the Olympics happened there. And it has since turned into a crazy tourism hub, I guess, and a great place for Calgarians to own a weekend place. It is substantially different now than what I grew up in. And, I would say, Jules, from what you lived in as well. And the small community aspect of Canmore, I think, is mostly gone from from when I was there, and I think you get a better community sense in Banff, or maybe that's just the people I know, but you feel like you get less weekenders in Banff, and an actual better core of people that live there and take part in the community. So
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and Banff has something that they call the need to reside, which basically means you can own a house in Banff, but in order to live in Banff, you need to work in Banff. So that has really kept the community very small and very tight. It's something that's quite unique and different and special about this place. The reason why I left Canmore and moved to Banff was actually exactly because of that. I wanted to be somewhere where the town I lived in had a really, really like hardcore identity. Not that the identity is hardcore, but they actually have a core raison d'etre. And I would say most people in Banff understand why they're there, that they live and work in an internationally recognized destination in a fully protected park. I think that makes Banff really special.
Yeah, Banff's crazy. It's funny because Mark, when I first met you, I was going to the Bow Valley a ton, and I'm born and raised in Calgary, and I would tour to, out to Banff to do things and out to Canmore to do things. And there was a really, really strong Canmore didn't love Banff kind of vibe from like, the Banff kids. And, like there was this little animosity between the two. You were steadfast Canmore, and now you are very much a Banff person. And there's been this interesting switch, and the dichotomy of Canmore being outside the park and being a mining town. They were digging holes in the ground. They were blowing shit up. You can build anything just about anywhere as long as you put a wooden sign on it. There's like some restrictions. Kind of got to look like an alpine thing, but you want to build a giant condo complex, go for it in Canmore. Banff, you can't build anything. You can't buy more property. You can't do anything there. And there's this really protectionist vibe that goes on. The only thing that I can put against it that's even similar is the French language in Quebec. They're so protective of what they do with their culture. Banff has got its own massive amount of protection, and in some instances for like the ski hills and development, it's a nightmare if you're trying to develop things because of the restrictions. But as far as a community, to what you were saying, Jules, it's just better. Like it's pure, it's clean, everyone understands the game, and it's really interesting. But these two things, they're so different, but they sit side by side. So you end up with a crazy mix of people in Canmore, and then very purist sort of community in Banff that just gets mobbed with tourists though consistently. So it's kind of a wild area. I don't know if you guys recognize that anymore, but it is like so original and crazy and beautiful. So knowing that that's where you guys live and we're basically in the world of ski, Jules, you're charged with selling really, really expensive. And I say this in like the scale of trips a human could take. I can drive somewhere and take a holiday. I can fly to Mexico and take a holiday. I can spend a bit more money and go to Italy. You're selling a really expensive thing within a country and people have to get over here, and you're selling it to a fairly high-end consumer. What is like, you guys are the originators of this. You're bringing people over for a sporting activity, because it is like, even if it's a really mellow day, like it's like the consequences are real. Like this is not like, of course there's easier runs and stuff, but most people that are coming are like, okay, put me in the deep, put me on something steep, let's go. How are you guys marketing out to this? How does I don't understand how your business works in general. You guys are putting helicopters in the air with 10 people on it and being very successful in doing it. Can you give everybody, myself included, because I just don't know, how do you find your customers? How do you express the consumer experience that they're going to have? Like, I would assume there's a fairly like conversational thing that would happen. Like, I can't imagine that most people just click buy online and don't somehow call and ask a bunch of questions. How do you guys do that? How do you manage the customers? How do you find them? Because I got to assume they're coming from everywhere.
Yeah, so our customer base is, well, pre-pandemic, our customer base was about 60% European. Let's see. We'll say 55% European, 40% American, and the balance was Australia and Canada and the rest of the world. That is tipped a little bit further even to North America, well, to America. We're not seeing the Europeans come back as quickly as we're seeing everybody else. I think there's a variety of factors there. Heli-skiing is, and really helicopter hiking, helicopter access, anything is the most ridiculous business to be in. I don't think anyone would ever be like, okay, we're going to put a bunch of wealthy people into a flying tin can, fly them to the top of a mountain, drop them off with two people that know what they're doing, and then hurl them down the mountain. And hopefully they'll make it, not injure themselves, whatever. And we're going to get back up and do it again. It's a highly, highly operationally intensive business. We, at any given moment, have somewhere in the range of 450 to 500 guests in the field during the winter. That reduces significantly.
Go back to that number. You have 500 or 400 to 500 active guests.
So we have 12 lodges across the interior British Columbia, operating, beginning of December through to the 1st of May. Some, depending on where those lodges are located, they may have a shortened season. Some might start, mid-December and just go to March, et cetera. But, we have anywhere from 33 or 44 guests at our lodges, variety of different types of programming, et cetera. But you can do the math, and sort of the height of our operating season, say end of January, early February, we get a lot of people in the field every day. We're the largest employer. We've got professionally certified guides in the world. I think this year it's around 180 guides.
Wow.
It's a really big operation. So from a brand perspective, we come down to sort of 4 key pillars that we believe is the ethos of why you would choose to come heli-skiing, and actually it translates quite well into the summer as well. First is that kind of epic joy that people experience when they are skiing and riding powder. I think it's really a highly youthful, childlike feeling that no matter whether you're the president or CEO of a country or an organization, or if you're the person that cleaned the toilet this morning, you share that joy, and you can hug and high five everyone at the bottom of the run. And that's the same when you're wandering around in the Alpine in the summertime. It's just this really pure, unadulterated feeling of joy. So that's sort of the first brand pillar that we lean into a lot. The second one is that camaraderie that you feel when you're in the mountains together. I think the three of us could share that we ourselves, when we're on a mountain bike ride or on a road ride, when you get to the top of a big climb or you have some super beautiful descent, that, I don't know, there's something that changes you, and it deepens your relationship with the people that you're around. And again, doesn't matter what your income is, doesn't matter what your background is, just spending time in the mountains, you build this beautiful relationship. Our lodges are designed. We don't have TVs in the rooms. We don't really even have that much music at the bars. Our lodges are created to sit down and actually speak to one another at night. And that's a pretty incredible thing. Sitting at a table with 10 other people that are from around the world with so many different backgrounds. You just develop these really interesting friendships. The third one is actually, and again, they're linked, is that like really transformative power of the mountains. I think it's why probably Mark's parents chose to move to Canmore originally. It's why my parents brought us back to Calgary in the 70s, and it's why I've chosen to live where I live. Is mountains change you. They get into you, and they get into your soul, and you are forever changed. They give you a humility that I don't think you can experience in the city.
Yeah. I'd
and then
agree with.
Really, you're your best self when you're there. Check your ego, check your mobile device, check everything at the door, and just be present and come and enjoy your time with us. So that's really our. We go to market with those four things, and we build pretty much all of our content around that.
From brand development to simple market executions, 54 Blue helps brands of all sizes grow with sustainability in mind. Their full-stack range of services include print, fabrication, design, web, interactive, content marketing, brand consulting, creative strategy, and more. Join some of the world's largest brands and lean on 54 Blue for your next go-to-market. Visit 54blue.com for more information.
So when you guys are distributing content, is it mostly online, or are you guys hitting European trade shows like tourism shows overseas, or you guys you have people coming to you consistently, so that you guys, like, you're basically busy enough just taking inbound traffic?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the industry prides itself on saying that we don't need to market. I think that's not, in fact, true. I would say every member of my team would say that's not true. We do a variety of different executions. We put on our own private events throughout North America, and then in Europe, and in other parts of the world. We have an incredible network of agents and in-market representatives that help to connect and make relationships within the markets that we play in. Our strategy has always been to fish where the fish are. We focus on really spending our efforts and making more efforts in the markets that we believe are already producing for us, because we're so, relatively speaking, we are small. You look at a market like, say, Germany, or a market like Colorado, where you've got this high concentration of passionate outdoor people. There is no reason for us to then go and try and develop a market like Florida. We may as well just focus on converting more people in those markets, because the chances that they actually know we exist is even higher. And the Floridians, unfortunately, they fly over all their second homes in the U.S. Rockies to get to Canada. So it's not that we're not bothering Floridians. We love Floridians, but we focus more on the markets that we believe can convert faster. We have a full-blown digital strategy, event strategy. We produce a ton of our own content, whether that's feature-length films, short-form films. We rely massively on our email database. It's pretty omni-channel, I would say. But trade shows we do not typically go to.
So when you guys are doing this, you just mentioned that you guys are tracking a ton of stuff. What's your do you bring athletes in or bring film crews in specifically to get promo and access their social and show the beautiful terrain that you guys have access to? What is, I know the answer to this is yes, you do. But how effective is that transient ambassador that you can get? Because they end up being an ambassador of some variety. So I would assume that's whether it's Warren Miller or, that style crew, or like a really core snowboard kind of crew. How does that affect your business? Do you see actual bumps when that footage comes out and those movies and stuff get made?
I mean, it's hard because number one, we have an extremely long booking window, typically 18 months. Our guests book ahead of time. Then we also will say it takes on average about 22 months from first brand interaction till actually booking. And that, I would say, is like, that's so that's a 3-year process, right?
Big time. Yeah.
And so for us, we're, when we have someone like a Travis Rice come in to film, or we've put on GoPro athlete camps before, that the content that those kinds of people, content creators, are putting out is really important for our next generation guests. So that might be, they may now book for another 10 years. But it's about us being relevant to them, so that we get into their brains and they'll keep us on their bucket list until they amass enough wealth to actually be able to convert. I mean, the reality is this is not a cheap vacation. Then within that, sort of the more mature demographic that can convert within that 3-year sort of window, our focus is really on sort of very high touch, small interactions. That's why we rely heavily on our sales teams that are out in the market. They're putting on small dinners. They're taking groups skiing. They are, it is very much one-to-one. But from an ambassador perspective, and even from a content creation perspective, we probably say no to 99% of the inquiries that come in.
Well, I'm assuming you get a crazy number of them because everybody wants a heli trip. There's no doubt about that. So,
yep.
Because it's super dope. Have you guys drilled this down to an average cost of acquisition for these customers? And you don't have to give it up or not, but have you guys actually, as a marketing company, have you drilled down to that, or do you just assume a number for it and accept it? Have you guys?
We have, but I would say it's not a focus of ours. We know the number. We know that it's not a small number, but ultimately the lifetime value of a guest, because 2 out of 3 people that come to CMH will come back in their lifetime. We're willing to spend that cost of acquisition because typically they'll stay with us year over year, or at least, probably every 3 years, for the rest of their skiing career. We have guests.
And I'm sure.
Go ahead.
Your rate of return has got to be huge, and just about every year, that person comes back and they have told 2 more friends, they've probably told 20 of their friends, but they've convinced 2 more to come, and I'm sure so many of those trip sizes are just like, yeah, we were 10 last year, now we're 14, and eventually those split off, and now like you have 2 friend groups bringing that over the years. So the initial on board of each customer, it is probably worth it when they bring over the next 15 years, they bring 30 of their friends in, right? So
absolutely. In fact, we compensate call them a group organizer quite handsomely,
nice.
Because we know that their word of mouth is so much more worth it for us than going to a trade show, for example.
That's huge.
After things are getting back going fairly well for you guys after the pandemic now, what's the best way to say this? What is your return like? How many of those guests have you seen come back, and how many new guests have you had to go and fill those spots because the Europeans aren't just coming like they used to?
Demand is through the roof.
Okay.
our guests have been, I would actually say the most beautiful thing is something that's been really heartwarming for us was watching our guests being so worried about us over the last few years. Are you
Awesome.
okay? We did a April Fool's joke where we fake sold the Bugaboos, which was our original lodge. And the number of emails that we got from guests being like, do you need us? Do you need money? What do you need? So this is horrible. And we were like, no, we're joking. But it was really beautiful to see, and they can't wait. They walk into the lodges and hug all the staff. So yeah, I mean, I would say, is it the current economy is a bit of a concern for us, for sure. Probably our most price conscious guests, which I would say are arguably the last two seats in the helicopter. They're the ones that are probably getting impacted by what's going on right now. So that is a concern for us.
I want to dive into that for a sec, Jules. So yeah. When someone goes to book a helicopter, there's 11 seats, 10 seats, something like that?
Yep.
Okay. So you'll have a group of 8 sign up potentially years in advance. And then you're sitting there with a couple seats or a single seat available as an opportunity buy for someone who's just like, you know what, I got a week and, I might go do a quick heli thing and take advantage of this. Do those last 2 seats go at a lower discount because they're an opportunity buy? So the answer is no. You're shaking your head. How often do you have a single seat free on? I'm assuming it's fairly rare.
It's pretty rare. It depends on the time of year. Mid-January through to mid-March, there's not very many single seats left. December and April are kind of our hardest or more difficult times to sell. I think in December, people, especially for those final 2 seats, they're like, ooh, I don't know if I'm in shape yet. I don't know whether I don't have enough days under my belt. I'm a little bit worried about coming heli-skiing in December. And then in April, where, in Canada, it is still very much winter. A lot of people have moved on to their spring sports, whether that's riding their bikes or going golfing or, whatever. People don't really think of April in many other parts of the world as still being winter. So it's difficult for us to sell those. But we try very, very hard to not discount our products.
Which I'm assuming you can get away without having to discount. It's a super premium thing. It's funny because I can't help but think you guys are running kind of a messed up hotel. It's multiple hotels, but let's just pretend it's one. And what you're really doing, if this was like Mexico, what you're really worried about is you're selling the banana boat ride or the paragliding as the premium thing. But this activity is it's not bungee jumping. This is a legit real thing. So your business practice is so different. And you've already expressed that the lodges themselves are uniquely different. It's quieter. It's more, you're in the mountains for real. What's the food like? I've been to a cat operation, but I haven't, and I got a few reasons why I haven't helied. And I know the lodge experience at Island Lake where I went cat was very, very cool. And it was amazing. How many chefs do you guys have? What's the staff? How does this all function? You don't have one master chef, that, is going to be running the hotel's, meals. You've got multiples of these things. So how does the hotel lodge experience for the consumer, what is that like? Because you're selling that as well. You're coming for the heli, but you're going to be spending a really interesting amount of time recuperating, getting ready for the next day and enjoying this facility. So do you guys have on-site massage? Do you guys have how does it work? Is each one of the lodges slightly different in the amenities that are available. Like, what's the breakdown on that?
So interestingly enough, we often say people come for the skiing, but they come back because of the staff and all those other additional amenities. The skiing kind of is sort of the obvious. Each of our lodges, depending on where they are, so we have fly in, we have roadside, we have in-town experiences. So Kootenay and Revelstoke are in the towns of Nakusp and Revelstoke. The Gothics and the Monashees, which are north of Revelstoke, you can drive to. Adamants, Bobby Burns, Bugaboos are all heli access. Galena's heli access, as is the Caribous. So logistically, really complex business again for distributing food and humans to go and service those guests. We have a team of a head chef, I think 2 assistants, a baker, as well as a few kitchen assistants that will help the guests for preparing their lunch in the field and breakfasts. All of this is down to every single bottle of beer is taken into the backcountry, either on a vehicle in the fall when we do massive load-ins or on a weekly basis through a helicopter. And, I would say we dine as a family. We do not have this is not white glove service model. It is very attentive and very, incredibly delicious and hearty food, but the intention is to be very familial as well. So it's not fancy. It's just fabulous.
It's fabulous. I'm assuming though that's what everyone wants. You're not like you're either there with a friend. I'm sure the number of people that are solo there is small, but at that point, they just want to be included with the rest of the group. And then there's the large group that would probably be the majority of the booking for that lodge at the time, or multiple groups if it's one of the bigger lodge. And at that point, they all just want to tell their stories and high five at night and play a quick game of poker and hit the hay because they've got another crazy day coming their way. Which to me just sounds like heaven, because you're wrapped in like fabulousness. The skiing's amazing. You're in a multi-million dollar thing, flying around. Everything is exciting. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but that, Jamie, the thing that's been was interesting through COVID is, just to kind of control illness and the risk of illness. We didn't dine with our guests this last winter and over this last summer and the summer previous. And that was something that our guests mentioned to us. They really, really, they missed being at the table with everybody. It's something that they said is part of that, the hut magic that we get to sell. And so I think that's a really, really integral part of our business. And actually coming out of COVID, we were like, do we go back to dining together? And we said, absolutely. It's super.
Yeah. Nobody wants to go and tour and stay a few nights at a working ranch and not be able to eat dinner with the cowboys. That's part of it. Like that is literally why you're there, is to get the stories and to talk and learn about these people. Anyone who's not doing that kind of traveling, I'm assuming, is just going to go to an all-inclusive where they can be anonymous and just sit there and enjoy it. And there's nothing wrong with either one of those. They're just definitively different people. And again, you're dealing with an economic range of consumer that is generally fairly high. And they have, I'm sure, enough of that like fancy dinner served by myself. And, the waiter doesn't talk to me. They're just magically there all the time. They're looking for something else. And that something else is organic mountain community and health and all the stuff that's wrapped in that, which to me that would be the most amazing thing ever.
It's totally profound. Our guests can go anywhere. They can do anything. They have homes all over the world. And this is the one trip that they like truly, truly rearrange their lives around to come every year. And that's like, to me, that's a reason for me to get up out of bed every morning.
Yeah.
Extremely important people choose to be with us because they love us so much.
Does your brand need some help in the trade marketing department? Manage your sales tools with Regulator's easy-to-use features. Whether it's fixtures or displays, POP, custom art or promo products, you can submit single or bulk orders for all your locations within minutes, using a simple, streamlined process. Deliver content, manage your budget and view the market, all from the palm of your hand. Move up to 10 times faster than your competitors and capture all the opportunities that put your brand on top. Visit brandregulator.com for more information.
Do you guys ever shut down? Like, do you ever have like just a ridiculous Uber star coming and you guys got to keep kind of things quiet and they're private jetting in, private car out, and it's like, okay, don't tell anybody, but Mark Walton's coming this trip, and Mark shows up and everyone flips out at the lodge. Do you guys keep those kind of things fairly under control, that when, you know, someone really famous shows up, which I'm assuming happens, whether it's a super high-end business person, actor, entertainer of some variety, I got to assume you guys are seeing like a really wide group of people, and at the table that you could be sitting at, you're probably with a leader of industry, some sort of, and, you know, like everyone's kind of mega is my internal feeling of this, because of just the economics of sort of what it's going to take to get there. It's not cheap.
Yes.
That was actually how I was picturing your response, was just yes.
Yes, that happens.
Jules, what's the longest that somebody has been coming? Take the pandemic years out of it, but like, how is there someone who's like 40 plus years at this point, or what do you think you're at?
I would say I think we're at 35, maybe 40, 35. You know, you consider typically, in order to, you know, passion, skill, access to resources, permission from your wife, in those four factors, you're looking at probably around 45 to 50 around entry into the heli-skiing, heli-snowboarding market. So you're...
Sorry, 45 or 50, are you talking age?
Age, yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, you probably have about a 25-year window where you're still going to keep coming.
Right.
Until
all those factors fall into the right spot.
Yeah. And I mean, we all know this, that your body slows down. And so...
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Fat skis have been an incredible invention for our industry. The fat ski has kept people skiing longer than ever. But yeah, I mean, and some of those guests that I said have spent, 30 years with us, they've probably transitioned to summer as well. They'll hike with us now. But yeah, but the most vertical skied, we've one guest right now who I think is at 21 million. Highest ever is 26 million vert.
Wow.
And that's vertical feet. Yeah, I don't think 26 will ever be beat, quite honestly.
Yeah, that's aggressive.
That guy used to move into the Monashees, and he had his own room, and he would just ski with us all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
What happens when the snow is bad and someone's just like booked their their first time, their dream trip of a lifetime, and it's like not great out there?
You know what? It is what it is. Most of our guests fully understand that we are, at the end of the day, farmers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
hope for the best. Typically, we don't have heinous conditions. Our guides are amazing at explaining what's going on. So if we're having a huge avalanche cycle, if it's low tide like it is this year, we at least are able to get the guests out a bit. We have a very generous refund policy. So we have a guaranteed amount of vertical for depending on the lodge and the program, et cetera. And if you don't reach that vertical, we provide a bit of a refund so that guests know that we get it. Even to the point of, if you have a really, really bad week, we are very kind. We also really encourage our guests to buy insurance, more so not on the condition side, but more in terms of life happening. That's something that our beautiful brothers and sisters from Europe and the rest of the world are much more attuned to, whereas North Americans, we don't buy a lot of travel insurance, but I think that is changing. But yeah, we've got cross-country ski trails, snowshoes. We have hosted all sorts of interesting in-lodge Olympic Games during down days, but we're really fortunate in British Columbia to have way less down days than you would have, say, up north in Alaska.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I would assume you guys also sort of have you guys are farmers, you're farming snow and looking, because everyone's looking for clean, untracked, beautiful everything. But I got to assume your guides are so attuned to weather conditions, what's been happening over the last day, week, month, year, as far as the pack, that they're like, okay, we can find, in their head, they're like, we're going to this very specific spot and we'll find maybe not an entire, 1,500 meters of vert in pure untouched powder bowl, but they're like, we're going to hit the trees here and it's going to be amazing. And they're just like, the mountains are, if anyone doesn't understand how big the mountains are, do yourself a favor, go do a heli hike and stand on the top of one of those mountains and your brain will explode. Mark and I and Julia have had, since we were young kids, the ability to ride up to the top of mountains. And if you ride to the top of, let's say, Moose Mountain, which is literally right outside of Calgary, it's the first real Rocky Mountain that exists. It's the closest thing to us. And you ride to the top of that. And it's like you're on the top of the moon. We'll have producer Jazz put up a picture of what that looks like up there. But you get to see everything, and it is huge. Like, it's huge. There's so much of everything. Like, the terrains can be very, very vast. And so, if you've never seen it and you got the money, call up Julia's team and go, because it's unreal. Like, it is literally unreal. And again, haven't had the opportunity to heli. Well, I've had tons of opportunity, but I haven't done it. It is exceptional when you can get to the top of the mountain and look at it. You're a different person. Like, really a different person. It's your chance to do it and not crash an airplane and be stuck in the middle of the wilderness like in a terrible movie. You can just do it and you've got people guiding you around. It's unbelievable. Speaking of that kind of stuff, your guys' safety, tracking snow conditions, training the consumer in avalanche training. Is avalanche training a mandatory before they come? Okay. And then do you guys do daily checkups on their knowledge and stuff, or how's that function when you guys get out there?
We don't require our guests to have done any avalanche training prior to arriving with us, but when they get to us, doesn't matter whether this is your 20th trip or your first trip, you are going to go through avalanche transceiver training. We actually do stop in the field on the first day and do some work around tree wells to show sort of the tree well risk and how you help get your tree buddy out. If that happens, every single one of our guests carries a radio. We actually have a 206, a smaller machine that flies ahead of the groups that is a safety ship. So one of the guides or two of the guides are in that safety ship that they are going ahead of the groups to assess the snowpack.
Sorry, back up. You lost me. So you have, whenever you send out a helicopter, you send out a pre-helicopter. And are you testing like snowpack and landing zone and all that sort of stuff just to make sure?
They're flying around. They're looking at the conditions on a daily basis. They are relaying information back to the guides that are with the guests, talking about anything to, heads up, this is a little funky, this is skiing really well, etc. This aspect. We've actually created our own proprietary software called Snowbase that we've been collecting data of the snowpack and conditions within each of our areas. We've got over 3 million acres of skiable terrain in all of our tenures. So since Snowbase has been in existence, it's tracking that. It's tracking wildlife observations. It's like it's a pretty mind-boggling data collection. Our guests get oriented around the helicopter. Again, doesn't matter whether this is your 5th or 20th trip or first trip. Everybody goes through that same amount of training. And then, of course, we only employ ACMG guides. So that's the Association of Canadian Mountain Guides.
Gotcha.
All of our guides are certified under the ACMG, which is one of the 2 internationally recognized bodies in the world.
Amazing. Are your guides setting off like avalanche bombs and doing that sort of stuff, or do you guys just stay off? Like, how much pro patrol level kind of like snow control are you guys doing out in the mountains in your leased territories?
That the snow safety guides that are in the smaller 206, they are doing some avalanche control for sure. Yeah, they throw bombs.
So if you've never seen it, look up avalanche bombing on Google. I would assume you're going to find a ton of stuff out there. But basically, they're either planting explosives, rarely planting, but they'll be shooting explosives off into what appears to be dangerous snowpack to get it to pre-slide before any consumer goes below it or around it in any way. And if you've never seen an avalanche, it is about the most serious business that you can ever get entangled with. Like I've seen some small ones and they're frightening. And when that much snow gets moving, it can be like an unstoppable amount of mayhem. So for your team to go out and control that, and obviously there's so many things about understanding snowpack and the education component of it and being able to interpret, like with your proprietary software, to watch the data and understand what's happening within all the different layers of that snowpack that is then sitting on, whatever percentage of grade. It is a legit science to be able to do it. Do you have a single person, Jules, that green lights stuff, or is it go through a committee, or is it person on site? How do you guys make the decision if you're like I've been in the mountains enough where it's like, it looks okay, I think it's okay, and you dig a pit and you're like, Is there a singular person that does that? How do you guys control that when it becomes a human judgment thing?
The guides work as a team within each area. In fact, from my knowledge, any guide has veto power. And that is a really important component to how we act as a team. Anyone is saying, I'm not feeling comfortable, then we don't ski it.
So a single person saying no out of 5, it's no. It's immediately a no. That's amazing. Yeah. And again, I got to assume, and just everyone needs to realize that you've got a really expensive thing somewhere with a bunch of people that paid a bunch of money to do it. And the fact that, that a single person can say no and stop that and change the day and create a whatever chain of events for refunds or whatever it may be. But when you're dealing legitimately with human lives, it's a no. That makes sense. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I've been
Crazy.
really moved and I'm blown away by the way in which our guiding teams work together. They meet every morning before going out into the field, and then they meet in the evening, and then we have a call in actually that happens every single day that we're operating, where all the lodges call into one central place and have a discussion around what they are seeing. We also provide information to the Canadian Avalanche Association or to Avalanche Canada, which produces something called the InfoX. So then that information is being shared across the entire industry, resort, cat, heli, and then ultimately to individual recreationalists on avalanche.ca. It's an extremely powerful tool. I think it's a beautiful reflection of how safety oriented the entire industry is. And it makes us all a lot smarter when we want to go into the backcountry. So
amazing.
Yeah, it's great to hear that everyone works together like that and just shares that info for sure.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, it's a really, heli-skiing is this really weird thing because as a skier or as a snowboarder, there's a certain moment in your ski career that you're like, okay, heli-skiing is on my radar, or cat skiing is on my radar. And I think I have this like great advantage of knowing what that was. I knew what that was when I was really young because my dad was a heli skier, but it is a really nebulous experience. And it's really like first timers show up and they're like, oh, the helicopter, and I got to bundle my skis and where's my gear? And, there's a lot of components and there's a lot of like unknowns. And I think my job and the job of my teams is really to break down all that mystery so that people are arriving knowing what they're getting into, knowing that they have the skill set to go heli skiing if they're good enough, or maybe they need to spend a bit more time before they show up, right up to those multi-million footers to make sure that they know that we're really, really grateful that they're showing up.
How many first timers do you have to look at and say, no selfies under the rotors? I got to assume that's a ton, just about every one of them.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. Well, it's okay to have a selfie, but maybe keep your hands down. Yeah. So none of this. Yeah. And your chest cam, you can't really have your chest cam on because that interferes with your transceiver. And please put your phone in airplane mode because that also interferes.
Yeah. A lot of rules, but for a very good reason. Sorry, Mark, you had a question.
Two questions actually. How many days a year do you get up there?
If you say over 10, I'm going to lose my mind.
I'm going to bet the number is over 10. It's not? Oh, I would have guessed over 10.
It depends on the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would have thought for sure there was enough R&D to be done up there for, I got to know what each lodge is like when I'm creating the marketing for it, right?
Yeah. The problem is we're full. There's never any seats.
And then what, I'm sure there's a number of factors that go into this time of year and which lodge, et cetera. But what would you say, what's the average cost for a trip?
Well, actually, what's the average stay and then an approximate cost? Because I think you can do a single day is definitively different than a 4-day or whatever it is. But what's the average stay?
Well, up until last September, a year ago in September, we only had 4, 5, and 7-day trips. But then we purchased Purcell Heli-Skiing, which has 1, 2, and 3-day. So I will say, for our signature program, Your average stay is about 5 days. But of course, we do have 1, 2, and 3 now as well. I would encourage people to come for more than 1 day, because I think you get that deeper experience. You develop more of that camaraderie. And on average, for a 5-day trip, you are looking at anywhere from $7,000 to $15,000, depending on the lodge, the program, if you're flying private. There's so many combinations and permutations, time of year. Yeah.
And Julia, where do you guys do you have most people flying into Calgary, or how do you guys, where does the consumer come into generally?
We have 2 hubs, Calgary International Airport and Kelowna International Airport. And I'd say almost, I think we're at 80% of our guests fly into Kelowna now.
And so would they fly in and spend first night in a small local hotel there and then kind of get looped in with you guys and then go out from that point? Is that sort of the standard?
We pick our guests up, except at Kootenay and at Purcell, we pick our guests up and transport them to the lodge. Again, we're seeing a little bit more of people driving their own vehicles or renting a car. The creation of the Icon Pass has definitely helped that. So if you're an Icon Pass holder, you can ski or ride at Ski Big 3 or at Revelstoke for 7 days, and now Pano and Red and Sun Peaks. So we're seeing a lot more people coming in and getting their ski legs or spending a couple days at one of the resorts, using their Icon Pass, and then going into the lodge.
Awesome.
So then they might have a private vehicle, but by and large, most of our guests show up on a bus with us.
Amazing. And if you've never been there, Kelowna is amazing, and it's wine country, and it is an awesome city to visit, and a great experience all on its own. Kelowna is great.
Great road cycling. Right, Mark?
Yeah, it's actually the best road cycling. And have you mountain biked there in Penticton and stuff?
I haven't mountain biking. I've mountain biked up at Silver Star. But yeah, no.
Yeah, that Penticton Valley, I've spent the last 3 Thanksgivings there with my nephew Zach, and it's unbelievable. It's super fun. It's really, really good. Yeah, it's a blast. On the Marketeers Clubhouse, I have a thing that we do, and it's the cool confessional. And I've said it before: a naked man can't be pickpocketed. And I'm not a person that likes to be bugged. And Jules, you've known me my whole life. I have done so many dumb and embarrassing things, and I try to have a nice little veneer of a businessman or a cool person, but basically I'm a geek and a kook. So in the cool confessional today, which I invite both of you to join in, I haven't helied because, to your point, I fell face first into a tree well in Fernie on a big snow day, and God love him. Jay Carter spent an hour and something getting me out of this tree well. And then I walked directly into a stream and fell into the stream, and was then standing in water looking up at Jay Carter about 8 or 9 feet above me. And it took us hours to get out of this space. And I have this, even thinking of from that point on, and I've snowboarded a ton, so much. I won't pass the line on the resort. And from that point on, I was like, nope. It scared the living shit out of me, because if you've never wallowed around in mashed potato snow that you can't get a footing in, it is the most frightening thing. And then if you're hanging upside down from your snowboard next to a pine tree, it is doubly scary. So I scared the shit out of myself. And I don't think I've ever told you that, Mark, have I? Yeah. So I am
no, I knew you were not into backcountry, but I didn't know why.
Yeah. I am so afraid of my own incompetence, and I faced it straight on. And thank you, Jay Carter, for getting me out. felt like I was going to die at that point. I'm sure I wasn't, but it was frightening and literally scared me straight. So that's why I don't split board, although I would love it. That's why I don't own a snowmobile, although I would absolutely love it. And that's why I haven't ever stood on the deck and gotten into a helicopter to go heli-skiing. So now you know. Cat skiing, for some of the reason I've been able to get my head around a little bit. I think it's because you're on the ground, although the risks are identical. I just, for whatever reason, struggle with that now. So there's my confessional. Snow scares me a lot. And it's very much limited me. Maybe I'll go get hypnotized and get past that somehow. If there's a good hypnotist out there and you can fix this, here's a good opportunity. Marky, what do you got in the cool confessional today?
This is one that, James, you already know, and there's very few people that do know this. But I had an imaginary friend for
Yes.
I don't really know how long it was. And I'd actually forgotten about it for a number of years until my brother had told someone who used to work with us. But Jake would like sit beside me on my chair at dinner. I would like sit on half the chair so Jake could share my chair at dinner. I think this is like, if I have to guess, I'm 4 or 5, I think, at this point. I vaguely remember it. But the only thing I really remember is the sitting on half the chair so he could share the chair with me at dinner.
That's amazing. There was quite a long period in time where we had a Jake at 54 Blue email address, and every once in a while I thought of emailing Mark from Jake just so that he didn't miss his imaginary friend. And by the way, Julia, your reaction to Mark when he said that he had an imaginary friend, you went,
yeah,
that was fantastic. That's a beautiful one, and I love it. Thank you for bringing that to the cool confessional.
Yeah.
Julia, what do you got?
I've been trying to think of something that's like, anyways. So I'm a relatively clean person. Relatively, I would say actually I'm very clean, but I'm a bit of a mess. You know, I walk into my house and you can see where I've gone in the house because I like drop things. Anyways, I am quite obsessive compulsive about loading the dishwasher.
Ooh.
I cannot deal with weird things that don't fit in the appropriate place. I also think there's like some kind of obsession that I have with trying to get the most dishes into the dishwasher. So I'm like, the plates go here. The cutlery always needs to be a certain way. And in fact, to the point where Andrew, my partner, is like, I'm not even going to bother because you're just going to go in and rearrange. Like, and I actually rearranged the dishwasher.
It's Tetris. It's like real life Tetris. I'm the exact same way.
Okay.
Andrew, if you're listening, I won't load the dishwasher at my house either because Harper Lee comes in behind and reloads it every time. Or she'll open it and I'll be in the living room somewhere and I'll just hear, oh, and I'll just start chuckling. I'm like, really? Really? What's wrong? She's nothing. This is fine. And then I can hear everything getting moved around and I just think it's hilarious. So whenever I do load the dishwasher, I load it and instantly start it so she can't come and check it. That's my move. And so then, like, if something breaks, it's on me. But like, generally, nothing breaks. But like, I feel that. So amazing. Okay, so you're a maniac, like my wife with dishwashers. So congratulations. I appreciate that. Julia, thank you for giving us a glimpse into what you do. CMH is amazing, and we're blessed to have it in Canada. It's an awesome thing if you get a chance and you have the economy to do so. It is a trip that you will never forget. I know so many people that do it. I'm not one that has done it, although I've experienced those mountains in a million different ways. So I know what you're going to get when you get up to the top. You should go do it. And from everyone that we know that we've ever met through CMH, the team is top notch. Like you're going to get a consumer experience like you've never seen. So keep up the good work, and fingers crossed. And the classic Calgary, pray for snow. We are hoping you guys get a great back half of the season, and I'm sure you guys will. And that your guests have an amazing 2023 up in the hills. So thank you, and appreciate your time. Mark, thanks for showing up and asking a bunch of great questions. Thanks, guys.
All right.
I want to say thanks very much, and I thank you both for your friendship and support all these years. It is kind of crazy when I think about how long we've all known each other. And,
it's a long time, but we're all awesome. So why wouldn't we be friends, right?
I'm really
awesome.
grateful.
Attracts awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Like the super friends. Okay, enjoy the day, everyone. Thank you. We'll talk. We'll talk again.
Talk to you later.
See ya.